Welcome, everyone, to our Yom HaShoah Commemoration ceremony.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Kolod balevav enima, nefesh Yehudi homia, ulfate mizrach kadima, ayin letzion Sophia. Od lo avda tikvateinu, hatikva bat shnot hapayim, liotam choshi be'artzeinu, Eretz Zion, Yerushalayim. Liotam chofshi be'artzeinu, Eretz Zion, Yerushalayim.
Beautiful. My name is Guy Lipa. I'm the board chair of Holocaust Museum LA. Good morning and welcome to Holocaust Museum LA's 33rd annual Yom HaShoah Commemoration ceremony. As the grandson of Holocaust survivors, Yom HaShoah has always been a very profound and solemn day for our family. For me, it's about honoring the memory of my grandparents and securing a better future for my two sons. Across the globe, we pause to commemorate the 6 million Jews who were murdered during the Holocaust, as well as the heroism, resistance, and perseverance of the Jewish people. On Yom HaShoah, we renew our commitment to never forget. We speak out against anti-Semitism, which is sadly more rampant today than ever. We honor our beloved survivors and stand up against all forms of hate, bigotry, and otherism. I'd like to ask the many survivors in attendance today to wave your hand or stand if you are able so that we may recognize your courage, strength, and wisdom. We are deeply grateful for how generously you give your time to educate students and visitors about the Holocaust, about your experiences, and about your hopes for the future. You are the lifeblood of our work, and your messages will always be a fundamental part of our educational programs. Earlier this week, the ADL released its annual report of anti-Semitic incidents for 2024, finding that Jews in America faced more than 25 hate incidents each and every day. It is the highest number on record since ADL began tracking anti-Semitic incidents since 46 years ago. Highest number in 46 years. The majority of these hate acts contained references and anti-Semitic tropes related to Israel and Zionism. Just this Wednesday, on the eve of Yom HaShoah, posters advertising a photo exhibition pairing Holocaust survivors with celebrities with the goal to raise awareness of growing anti-Semitism were vandalized and destroyed in New York City, many depicting this institution's beloved survivor community, like Ava Nathanson, Ella Mandel, Joseph Alexander, Gabriella Karen, and Joe Samuels. As a community, we are on edge. We feel under attack and isolated from many of our traditional community partners and allies. It can feel like no matter how hard we try, there's just too much hate and anger towards us to combat. I know for me, there are times when I feel like I just want to throw my hands up and say, forget it. It's just too hard. There's too much anger and hate in the world at this point, or even worse, I'm tempted to respond to the hate and vitriol from a place of anger and fear within myself. In these dark moments, I think about the survivors that are here with us in the audience today and their incredible stories. I think about my grandparents and what they experienced so that I can be here today. And I think about my two boys and the future that I wish for them in this world. As a community, this is the time to lean into our humanity. It's a time to speak up and to reach out and break the divide of hate through education and partnership. This is why I am proud to work closely with our museum staff, board of directors, dedicated volunteers, and incredible docents who are teaching the generations of today and tomorrow how to be upstanders and how to respond to anti-Semitisms and all forms of hate and otherism. I'm also especially proud to see how the Jonah Goldrich campus has really begun to take shape right next to us. In the last few months, we can really see what our future looks like. This expansion will allow us to keep survivors' voices alive, increase our visibility, and amplify our reach and impact for generations to come. One of the museum's founding members, Jonah Goldrich, once said, "It's important to teach the young generation about the Holocaust. The world wants to forget the biggest horror mankind ever created, the murder of 6 million Jews by a country that was at the time considered the most cultured and enlightened in the world." We share Jonah's charge when he said, "I'm fighting against forgetting." I want to acknowledge several guests in attendance today. Please stand when I call your name. Consul General of Israel, Israel Bachar. District Attorney Nathan Hochman. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass. Consul General of Spain, Gerard Fayot. Consul General of Poland, Matsus Mura. Diplomat from the Consulate General of Lithuania, Justina Jakovoyanta. Santa Monica Malibu Unified School Board member John Keene. Mayor of Beverly Hills, Sharona Nazarian. Consul General of Austria, Dr. Michael Postel. Deputy Consul General of Israel, Yulia Rachinsky. Consul General of Germany, Andrea Sassi. Consul General of Japan, Kenko Sone. and of course, our beloved LA City Council member, Katy Yaroslavsky. I'd also like to ask my fellow Holocaust Museum LA board members to please stand for a moment so that we may thank you for your dedication to our mission and to your stewardship of our fabulous institution. A heartfelt thank you to our 2Gs and 3Gs. These are the children and grandchildren of Holocaust survivors. I believe we even have some 4Gs here today, the great-grandchildren of Holocaust survivors. Could family members of survivors please stand? There's a world imagined by people filled with hate where none of us would be here today, yet we're all standing. Thank you to all of you, our docents, volunteers, and generous donors for joining us today. I want to also acknowledge the 48 members of our community who are currently representing Holocaust Museum of LA at March of the Living in Poland and who cannot be here with us today. Thank you to our community partners, AEDL Los Angeles and the regional director, Jeff Abrams, the American Jewish Committee, the Board of Rabbis of Southern California and its chair, Rabbi Sarah Hronsky, the Jewish Federation of Los Angeles, Kehillat Israel, Stand With Us, Temple Emanuel of Beverly Hills, and Temple Beth Israel, Hillel. A very special thank you also to Nicole and Alan Munchnick, Richard Deutsch, and Richard Deutsch, the Santa Clarita Studios, and Lorena Gonda for their generous support of this year's Yom HaShoah ceremony. We're also so pleased to have artist Tomer Peretz, who designed the amazing community mural that you saw behind us over here. Thank you so much. And please join me now in welcoming Rabbi Amy Bernstein of Kehillat, Israel, in the Pacific Palisades, which miraculously still stands after the devastating fires earlier this year.
Thank you all for having me today. My origin story is a story of rescue. I was adopted as an infant and adopted into a Jewish family, a family that couldn't have their own children. So my origin story is one of being rescued by the Jewish people, being rescued by Jewish parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins. And I was raised in a private Jewish day school in Atlanta, Georgia. So I grew up every single day with half of my subjects being Judaica and half of them being secular studies. I grew up with the great privilege of sitting at the feet of survivors every Yom HaShoah and learning from their stories, hearing in detail as a child their stories. We had graphic pictures and imagery because they didn't know yet how to educate children about trauma. So we took into our bones the trauma of our people. I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. So my Jewish day school was in the South, where I had the great good fortune. My mother was very involved with the civil rights movement. We worked on the first black mayor of Atlanta, Maynard Jackson, on his campaign. He would come pick me up at school, at the Hebrew Academy often, and it was always, an interesting thing for the staff. I learned early, listening to our history as the Jewish people, learning it every day in school, sitting at the feet of survivors, sitting at the feet of Coretta Scott King every Martin Luther King week. I learned the incredible dignity with which people fight for what is good, what is just, what is right. I learned that we can respond to hate and danger and fear with our own anger and bitterness, but that doesn't serve to create a life that anybody really wants to live. And the survivors that came to talk to us, The folks who were very involved in the civil rights movement, who spoke to us, spoke of wanting to live a life of meaning and contributing out of an energy of a sense of what's possible and not accepting from anybody any sense that we are limited in any way other than by what we fail to dream that we can make happen. Those stories that I heard growing up, we then shifted into a new kind of Holocaust education, which was all about resistance, that we shouldn't talk about like lambs. We should talk about the places that we resisted. So that took up a couple of decades of how we talked about Holocaust education, the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, all of the people who resisted. So we did that for a while as a way to try to talk also about the incredible energy and courage and bravery of people and the righteous Gentiles who risked their lives, often lost their lives, to stand with us, to stand with LGBTQIA people, disabled people, political opponents of the Nazi regime. But we're in a new phase for some of us about relating to the Holocaust, to the Shoah, and to the stories I grew up hearing. And now I am in the place, it was studying so many aspects of the history and the experience of people, and then there was resistance as the focus, and now for me, it's about focusing on resilience, because my own community has burnt to the ground. All of those mementos of my family, they're all gone. My grandparents, my great-grandparents, all of the precious things they handed down to me are gone. My daughter will not inherit any of that. At 60 years old, I now understand what made those Holocaust survivors so beautiful, radiant, inspiring. Same with those who were on the front lines of hate, of racism, and all kinds of otherisms. What made them so inspiring and such shining examples for those of us who wanted to spend our lives being like them, what made them like that was their resilience and their commitment to living deep, meaningful, joyful lives in touch with pain, in touch with reality, in touch with danger, in touch with all of the ways that we have to be careful and vigilant. And they modeled for every one of us with every conversation, every handshake, every kiss on the cheek. They modeled for us what it is to live into the dignity of hope and about what's possible. That is what LA will require for us in the Palisades, for those affected by, it wasn't just the Palisades, right? So everyone affected by these horrible wildfires. We are gonna have to lean into what Rabbi Ed Feinstein so wonderfully called being 10th of Av Jews. He said, yeah, Tisha B'Av, yeah, on the 9th of Av, we get together and remember all of the many destructions, yes, but we are the Jewish people. And the Jewish people, if you're sitting here or you're allied with us, then you're about being 10th of Av Jews. Yes, we mourn. There's gonna be a piece of charcoal from someone's home that I will pick up and draw on that board for that incredible piece of art. I hope I can do it, because that's what mine looks like now. We are 10th of Av people. That is why we're still here. Let us do everything we can to work together, to work against division and separation and hate and otherizing. Let us work together to empower each other in all of the ways that we can. This city, our community, our city's leadership deserves our help, our support, and our trust and vision that no matter how hard it is, no matter how deep the trauma, we are the Jewish people, we are Los Angeles, we are allies in the fight for making this world the just, equitable, compassionate, thriving place that we know it can be. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Rabbi, your words are so powerful in thinking about the loss that you went through and that so many thousands of people in our city went through just a little over 100 days ago. And we will all stand with you and make sure that you are able to get back into your home. And I appreciate the work that you have done throughout, and your words of unity and your words against hate in the time period that we're living in, because in some ways it's such a confusing time, which is why to me today is so important. We have to always remember our history and the loss and the struggles that people have gone through. And in this time period now, we're fighting to retain that history, because there's sentiment around as anti-Semitism has grown and not just resurfaced because it's always there, but the way it has come back, the vitriol in which it has come back. And one of the manifestations of that is to deny, to attempt to revise, or attempt to erase history, and we must never, ever, ever allow that to happen. While we mourn the 6 million Jewish souls who perished in the Holocaust, we also reaffirm our commitment to ensuring that tragedies like that never, ever, ever happen again. And the key to that is always to reassert that history and the lessons from that history. I appreciate the survivors and honor the survivors that are here today. I grew up with Holocaust survivors and also grew up with those stories and could relate to the experiences that the Jewish people had as you recalled your time growing up in Atlanta, and how all of us have to stay united and can't allow anyone or any of the forces who are so prevalent now and who make their careers off of dividing and pitting people against each other and always looking for examples of differences instead of looking for examples of unity. And I think one way for us to show that unity, it's wonderful being here today and seeing the progress on the museum development. And I'll be there every step of the way to make sure that there's no barrier in the city for the full restoration and expansion of the museum, and to make sure that people come here, and they come here often so that they can learn from that history. You know, saying never again can't be a passive statement. It has to be an affirmative statement. And today, on behalf of the city of Los Angeles, I want to reaffirm our commitment to the Jewish community, its success, and its freedom as an integral part of the strength of our city. We are approaching a time when we know that living witnesses of the Holocaust will not be there to share their stories. But that is why it is so important that the Holocaust Museum is there and that those stories are never forgotten. Thank you very much for the honor of speaking with you today.
On behalf of the State of Israel, I would first like to honor and recognize all of our survivors who are here with us today. Your stories are vital for humanity and serve as a reminder that evil exists in humankind. In this landmark year of 2025, 80 years after the defeat of Nazism, it is a fact that Jew hatred is a clear and present danger in the most liberal, cultured, and sophisticated societies around the globe, and sadly, including America. Jews are attacked, synagogue defaced, Jewish students harassed on campuses. Does it sound familiar? Hitler and the Nazi Party gained power in Germany, a society flourishing artistically and intellectually. Professors, musicians, philosophers, and scientists not only failed to fight this evil, They joined it. Some people ask, where was God? I'm asking, where was humanity? When human life is no longer sacred, Auschwitz becomes possible. We must never forget the Holocaust. Never again walk that road that begins with hate and ends with attempted genocide. Last year, here, I spoke about factories of death. Now we are battling factories of lies, lies that contort and incite hate against Israel and the Jewish people. For many years, we are fighting Holocaust deniers, like Abu Mazen, head of the Palestinian Authority, whose PhD is in Holocaust denial. And today, we face October 7th deniers. After 569 days, Hamas still holds 59 hostages in Gaza. We will bring them home. The Jewish people are at war, in Israel and across the globe. The blood libels online, the violence in school, the rerunning of Israel history on Wikipedia and in academics literature have become commonplace. Anti-Zionism is the new anti-Semitism. This week, on Yom HaShoah, sirens sounded across Israel, bringing every Israeli to a standstill, commanding never forget, never let history repeat itself, never be indifferent, and never believe that somebody else is going to fight for you. I had a great fortune to grow up as a proud Israeli Jew, strong in my identity. And for me and for my generation, nothing influenced that identity and allegiance to Israel more than the Holocaust. When we put on our IDF uniforms, we know what we are fighting for. We know that the state of Israel is the only refuge for Jews from anti-Semitism. Israel was not created because of the Holocaust, but because of our 3,000-year history in our biblical homeland. The Jews did not despair after the Holocaust. The survivors built new lives, new communities around the world and in Israel. Our sages knew the importance of resilience and the perseverance in the face of adversity. And the prophet Micha said, Al tismechi oyavti li, ki nafalti kamti, ki eshev b'choshech Adonai or li. Rejoice not against me, O mine enemy. Though I am fallen, I shall arise. Though I sit in darkness, God is a light unto me. We rose, we came together as a people again, building one of the world's oldest and newest countries, the State of Israel. Creating new generations of proud Jews who are fighting to ensure our independence and self-determination. Israel is the ultimate triumph of all Jews against the Nazis. Am Israel Chai.
Thank you very much, Beth, and to everybody at the museum for the hard work that you do. The most interesting and most moving part of this entire event is to see so many of the survivors and to see their family members and to meet Erika. She's written 28 books. 28 books. She speaks 12 languages. She's been all over the world, worked for National Geographic, is a photographer, a storyteller, an author, a playwright, all these different things. So she's a good storyteller, so we're grateful to be able to hear her story. And her latest book, by the way, because we're always plugging, right, is called Liar's Paradise, which comes out in about a month from now. You're going to be speaking at the Barnes & Noble across the street talking about this new book. And I want to start there with that title, Liar's Paradise, because from the time you were 4 years old, you were taught to lie.
Absolutely. I knew. Is this on?
It's on, yeah.
Yeah. I knew that if I told the truth as to who I really was, I would get killed, my mother would get killed, my sister would get killed. So I became an absolutely expert liar. I didn't stop lying until I was in America at age 20 when I got married, and my American husband said, "You don't have to lie anymore." So I'm still a very good liar.
But how do you process that? So that one of the things that makes you such a good storyteller is you literally have a photographic memory from the time you were 4 or 5 years old, remembering exactly what happened. So your book is separated into 3 different parts: surviving Hitler, surviving Stalin, surviving revolution, and then the new book, which will come out later, is going to be Surviving America, but we'll get to that later. But let's start with the surviving Hitler part. So you're there, your father gets taken away, your mother is left behind with you and your sister, you're in Hungary, and you have to learn to lie about your identity. And there were moments where it was not clear that you were going to live. Take us there.
Well, my very first memory of the war is that we were living in an apartment. We had to move from our original apartment to another one. And about 4 o'clock in the morning, there was banging on the front door, and somebody was shouting, "Get dressed and come downstairs." And we didn't know what this was about, so my mother jumped out of bed and said, this must have been like 4 or 5 in the morning, jumped out of bed and said, "Let's get dressed and let's go downstairs." My sister, who at the time was 7 years old, also jumped out of bed, grabbed my mother's legs in the middle of the living room, or bedroom, and said, "We're not going." And they were fighting in the middle of the room, whispering. My mother said, "You know what's going to happen if they break the door down?" And my sister said, "I don't care, we're not going." And my mother couldn't move. I was so scared, I covered my face with the blanket and just waited. Eventually, we heard people going downstairs, and my mother was still standing there with my sister holding on to her. And then we heard people leaving the building, and my mother said they left. And then she said, "We're going to go back to sleep, it's too early," and got up a few hours later, gathered whatever food we had left, piece of bread, water, and little briefcases with a change of clothing, and she said, "We have to leave." And as we went to the front door, it had a window on it, and there was a shadow there, and somebody was knocking on the door, and we froze. And then we heard a man's voice saying, "Mrs. Fabian, I'm your neighbor. Open the door, I want to talk to you." And this is the neighbor who said to the Nazi banging on our door that we had left already. So in effect, he saved our lives.
And did everybody else die from the apartment?
I don't know
You don't
what
know where they
happened to all the people, but they were all deported.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so then your mother's trying to basically fake your identity as Christians, right? And
Right.
so she has to go to get papers to prove this, and you the scheme of what to do with the kids when she goes on this journey is that you're going to go into a hospital where you have a friend to fake that you're sick so that you're not taken away. Tell us that story.
I think my acting career started then. Because I had to fake that I was very sick. My mother took us to a Red Cross hospital that actually housed many Jewish children, some actually very sick and some of them not, like my sister and I. And my mother told us to fake being sick so they would accept us, and we were. And she had to go to a village in the northern part of Hungary because before the war, we had a housekeeper who had to leave because she could no longer work with a Jewish family. But she said to my mother, she's been with us since my sister was born. So she said to my mother, if you need anything, let me know, if I can help you in any way. So when my father was taken into a labor camp, my mother wrote to this woman, and she secured birth certificates from us that were similar in ages to my sister and me and my mother, and they were her family's birth certificates, so they were actually legitimate Christian birth certificates. And my mother had to go and get these. But as you said, she had to do something with us. We couldn't go with her. So here we were in the Red Cross hospital, and she said, I'll be back in 2 days, behave yourselves. We did. But the second night we were there, at dawn, I hate getting up early to this day, at dawn, we were told, we were brought some hot soup and a piece of bread, and we were told to get dressed. Actually, we were dressed because there was no heating in the room, to put on our shoes and go downstairs after we had our soup and bread. My sister said, don't eat your bread, put it in your briefcase. We'll eat my bread because we don't know where we're going, so we might want some food later. We went downstairs. All the sick kids, sick or not, had to gather outside the building, and there were men, Hungarian men, in Nazi uniforms, lining us up against the wall of the building. And this was late September, early October, so it was quite cold. And after everybody was out of the building, we were told to march. It was pitch dark, it was early in the morning, and we actually walked the entire day. The sun didn't come up, but the light was out about 10 or 11 in the morning. And by about 4 o'clock, I was ready to die. I was so tired. My sister dragged me along. I said to her, I just want to sit down by the wall here. I don't want to go anywhere. And she said, let's go. She grabbed me, took my briefcase, and dragged me with her. And finally, we got to a building, and we were taken inside and told to move forward into another room, which was so full of kids that you couldn't walk in there. This was a former stone quarry, and this time they gathered young children from anywhere ages 3 to 14 or something like that to be deported to Germany. My sister grabbed me and moved me to the back of the room and said, we're going to wait here. And I said, how is our mother going to find us? And he said, she'll find us. We spent the night there. And the next morning, pitch dark, early in the morning, a Nazi officer opened the door and shouted into the room, Judith and Erika Fabian, come out. And of course, we woke up. I said to my sister, he's wearing a Nazi uniform. He's asking us to come to him. He'll kill us. And Judith, my sister, said, get up and let's go. We're the only ones he's calling. So we went out to the door. She said, I'm Judith, this is Erika. He said, come with me and don't say a word. He took us outside and said, these kids have been brought here by mistake. Here are their actual birth certificates. And the guard at the door looked at it and said, okay, take them, sign them out. He took us outside and said, we're going to get on several streetcars. Don't talk. Just come with me. I was so terrified. I can't even tell you. I could understand why he said we shouldn't talk, because there were a lot of Nazi officers on the streetcar, along with people going to work. It was like 7 o'clock in the morning. And we took about 2 or 3 streetcars. We got off, we walked for a while, and then we got to a building. And he said, go inside and knock on the concierge's door. Every Hungarian building in the capital in Budapest had a concierge's apartment as you walked in. So he said, knock on the door, and if anything happens, come right out. I'll hold your briefcases. So he waited outside. We knocked on the door, and my mother was there. Should I?
Yeah. And what did she say to you, and what did you say to her?
She said, before we go upstairs, you have to learn your new names. And I could keep my name as Erika because it was a good German name as well. My sister became Edith instead of Judith because Judith sounded too Jewish. And our last names became Poyak, which was the name of this former housekeeper of ours and her family. So we learned our names. And, you know, I never asked my mother why, but before we went upstairs to an apartment that she secured, she taught us the Lord's Prayer, the Christian version of the Lord's Prayer. And she taught us that we were now Protestants, not Catholic, which is most of Hungarian population, but Protestants. So once we learned the Lord's Prayer, we went upstairs to an apartment that was actually provided for my mother and us by a doctor who harbored Jewish doctors in the hospital. He wasn't Jewish, but he rescued us. So that's where we spent the war.
Spent the war there, and then ended up in Hungary, ended up being held at gunpoint at another point in your life. I mean, you've had a whole lot of extraordinary experiences. Ended up in America in 1956 and have traveled the world, have talked about the fact that you don't necessarily feel home anywhere because of all of that travel. But in this moment now, in 2025, when you see what's happening in America, what you see also what's happening with immigration, I know is something that you see some similarities to. What do you think is the most important thing that we can learn from your story now, given what's happening in our world?
You know, I didn't talk about my past, especially not my refugee and Jewish past, for many, many years. And then I met a German survivor who said to me, why aren't you speaking at the Holocaust Museum? And I said, what? And eventually I ended up as a speaker at the Holocaust Museum, and I feel that I didn't even want to write about my life. My older son asked me to do it. I feel that spreading the word, when I speak to kids or adults even at the museum, they all walk away saying to me, they will tell their families, their friends about my story. I think it is terribly important to keep this past alive so that people learn from it. If we keep quiet, we're going to get killed. That's really my experience, that you actually have to speak up. You can't be quiet.
And what kind of historical parallels do you see from that experience 80 years ago to some of what's happening now?
That anti-Semitism never went away. I always find it extremely strange that different people hate each other. You know, I traveled around the world, and I've been to some of the most primitive places that exist, like Papua New Guinea. And I found that a sense of humor and understanding of each other existed, even though these people were naked, women and men. and never saw another person until 1945 when an American pilot landed in their village, basically, force landed. You couldn't even get into the place without, it was full of mountains, without flying in. And so I find that people are actually similar in many ways, and it's the theories that we have to fear. It's teaching community and teaching understanding of other people that is truly the key to peace, basically, and survival.
They're telling me we got to wrap up. I'm going to do 2 quick questions to wrap up. After all those years of lying, what did it feel like to finally be your authentic self?
Pretty good.
Okay, we'll leave it there. And let's get a plug for the book. What you're writing, how people can check it out, how people can see you here.
The book is called Liar's Paradise because when I grew up under communism, they always said that we live in socialist paradise, and actually everybody was lying about absolutely everything all the time. There was not enough food, there was a tremendous amount of oppression of opinions, so I decided to call the book Liar's Paradise. And the book is basically 4 parts. The first part is surviving Hitler. The second part is surviving Stalin. The third part is surviving revolution, which is what enabled me to escape from Hungary. And Hungary had a revolution in 1956 against the Soviet occupation. And the fourth part might be surviving America, because I had a very unique time the first 3-4 years of living in America. I didn't realize how different American culture was from European culture. And actually, I'd like to tell an episode, last thing. I graduated from high school in McMecken, West Virginia. And when the principal signed me in as a student, he asked my name, he asked my date of birth, he asked my religion, and I said Jewish, and he said, "What?" I said Jewish. And he said, "What's the main religion in Hungary?" I said, "Catholic." He said, "Oh, Jewish Catholic."
The lies continued. A quick promo for myself. I anchored the 5, 6, and 10 o'clock news on Fox 11. And tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, our guest is Erika. She'll be joining us live. So we're really excited for that. Thank you all for what you do. And thank you, Erika. Give her a huge round of applause. Stand up if you can for Erika. Thank you all.
Lighting the first candle, we have 3 generations: Holocaust survivor Mary Bauer, her son Bobby, and granddaughter Harris.
Marking the 80th anniversary of liberation and the end of the war, in memory of our loved ones lost, whose chance of life and freedom were taken away, we honor you.
For the honor of the second candle, one of our longest-serving Holocaust volunteers, Harry Davids, and one of our oldest survivors, Joe Alexander.
For the lost generation of 1.5 million Jewish children who were murdered and never given the chance at a full life, we remember the lives they never lived.
3G Richard Deutsch lights the next candle in honor of his 4 grandparents who survived the Holocaust, Jamie and Sylvia Deutsch, and Maurice Rosenson of blessed memory, and Bella Rosenson, who is now 100 years old.
For the cherished survivors in our community who have passed since we gathered at Yom HaShoah last year, Dr. George Birchie, Natalie Gold, Louise Lerner, Alexander Lowinger, Phil Rauscher, and Dana Schwartz. They shaped how we understand the past, inspiring how we build the future. May their memories be for a blessing.
Los Angeles District Attorney Nathan Hochman will light the fourth candle.
For the countless unnamed Jewish victims, Ashkenazi, Sephardic, and Mizrahi, across Europe and North Africa, whose names we do not know. For the several thousand vanished communities that existed for centuries, who only have us left to light a candle for them.
Tuji Sandra Gerson Kanengeiser and her husband Louis light the fifth candle in honor of Sandy's parents Barbara Nomberg Gerson and Robert Gerson.
For the courageous Jews and the non-Jewish rescuers, the righteous among nations, those who risked or gave their lives to save others, we look to those who choose courage, compassion, and moral clarity in the face of injustice.
Holocaust Museum LA Vice President and 2G Andrea Caton and her husband Barry Caton, along with their children 3Gs, Lindsay and Garrett, and daughter-in-law Anna, in honor of their father and grandfather, Jonah Goldrich.
For the survivors whose testimony ensures that we never forget and whose wisdom and resilience inspire future generations.
In memory of the 6 million honorary board member and 2G, Dr. Gary Schiller and Cantor Chalin will lead us in the mourner's Kaddish.
Everyone cries, they cry mercy, and yet the soul is restless. And in our hearts there is a weary flutter of wings and a disquietude we cannot escape. Doves, they hover and rest, their wings shape shelter for each other against darkness and rain and unbearable light. So we gather to give your soul a canopy of memory. We are your safe haven, the place where nothing you hoped for or won is lost or forgotten. So rest here with us, sweet presence. How brightly you shine in each moment recalled, laden with the promise of peace and paradise, woven from your deeds among us. Now you are here. You are a part of everything we hold, sacred and holy. And in the midst of these, our thoughts are with you. So we ask, we let you be held tight in the bond of the living. And may your resilience feed our resilience. And may you rest in peace. And we say, Amen. It is customary to rise for El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hamtzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, B'malot Kedoshim Utorim, Kezohar Harak Yamazirim, Et Nishmot Kol Acheinu B'nei Yisrael, Shenitbechu b'shoah, Anashim Nashim V'ataf, Shanechin nuku, Vishani sruhu, Vishanergu, Shamasru et nafsham, Al Kiddush Hashem, Began Eden Tehei Menuchatam, Ana Ba'a Harachamim, Ba'al Harachamim, Hatztirei Beseter Kenafecha Leolamim, Vitror Bitror Hachayim et nishmotehem, Adonai hu nachalatam, ve'anochu b'shalom al menishkevotehem, ve'nomar Amen.
Please remain standing. On your way out the door, I was asked to remind you there are candles with names of individuals who left no one to say Kaddish for them. And so we are all mourners today, and we will all remember those who left nobody on this earth, as well as our own loved ones. Yiskadal v'yiskadash Shemei Rabbo, V'almad dibrach Arosei v'yamlich mahusei, V'chayachon v'yomechon v'chaye d'chol beis Yisrael, V'agala b'zman kariv v'yamru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba mebarach l'olam olmei olmayim, Yisbarach v'yishtabach v'yispoar v'yisromam v'yisnasei, v'yisadar v'yisalei v'yisalal Shmei d'Gesha B'richu, Leila Minko Berchosa Vishirosa Tushbachosa Vanechemosa Damiram Balama Vimru Omein Yehe Shlomo Rabba Min Shemaya V'chaim Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'yimru Omein Ose Shalom Bimrumav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'yimru Omein.
I wanted to thank everyone again for joining us for our 33rd annual Yom HaShoah Commemoration. Thank you to all of our speakers for their moving and thoughtful remarks. Alex, you're a busy guy too, so thank you so much for making time to be here. And Erika, I'm also a very good liar. I grew up not knowing which lie I should tell about my mother, what year she was born, what city she was born in, so I guess it's a common thing. I want to give Jen Maxey, where's Jen, our Chief Program Officer, and her entire team, Shelby, Vicky, Michael, a huge shout out. Everything you see today is because of Jen and her team. I want to give our entire museum staff a huge shout out for making today so special, so thank you everyone. Thank you again to Alan and Nicole Muchnick for being our presenting sponsor today, and to Richard Deutsch and the Santa Clarita Studios and Lorena Gonda for your generous support of today's program. Today, we heard a lot about resilience, strength, and spirit. From one generation to the next, the flame keeps burning. I want to invite everyone to participate in our collaborative community mural devised by Israeli artist Tomer Peretz entitled The Same Flame. This unfinished work is a shared act of remembrance that honors those lost, those grieving, and those still here. Using charcoal recovered from the recent Los Angeles fires, you can add your own mark and shape what comes next. So please, on your way out, don't forget to stop. The tent is right around the corner. Holocaust survivor and artist Gabriella Karen, who is currently at the March of the Living, is collaborating with Tomer and will help complete the piece before the final mural will be unveiled when our new campus opens next year. Before you leave today, I also wanted to remind everyone to please take a yahrzeit candle that's sitting on one of the tables. And I find that I get emotional just looking out, seeing everyone who's here today, and I just wanted to say again, thank you so much for coming together as a community. It really means a lot, and I know you all join me in making our promise to never forget. So thanks for coming, and now I'd like to invite survivor Henry Slucky and actor Mike Bernstein and Cantor Fran Chalin, who will lead us in the Partisan song. That will conclude our ceremony. And you'll see the translation and transliteration are included in the program.
Sag nicht keinmal, als du gehst dem letzten Weg. Gott Himmel bleie, verstellen bleie Tag. Warum wird noch unser reichgebänkte Show? Zweit abhäuft an unser Trott mit seinen Dau. Warum wird noch unser reichgebänkte Show? Zweit abhäuft an unser Trott mit seinen Dau. Von grünen Palmenland bis weißem Land von Schnee. Wir kommen an mit unser Pein, mit unser Weg. Und wo gefallen unser Blut. Sprotzen wird dort unser Grohre, unser Mut. Und wo gefallen unser Spritz von unser Blut. Sprotzen wird dort unser Grohre, unser Mut. Es wird die Morgensonne beginnen in dem Hain. Und der Nächte wird verschwinden in der Fein. Nur ein Versammeln wird die Sonne der Kajol. Wie ein Parol so ging das Lied von Dort zu Dort. Nur ein Verfallen wird gefunden in Kajol. Wie ein Parol so ging das Lied von Dort zu Dort. Das Lied geschrieben ist mit Blut und nicht mit Leid. Es ist nicht kein Lied von der Feuer läuft der Fly. Das hat der Volk zwischen Fallen nicht gewählt. Das Lied gesungen mit Meganes in die Hand. Das hat der Volk zwischen Fallen nicht gewählt. Das Lied gesungen mit Meganes in die Hand. Das sagt nicht einmal, als du gehst dem letzten Weg. Gott Himmel bleien, verstehen neue Tag. Kommen wird noch unser ausgewählte Show. Es wird abhäuft an unser Trott mit seinen Dorf. Kommen wird noch unser ausgewählte Show. Es wird abhäuft an unser Trott